On today's video, we went Uber driving in Bradenton, Florida at night. We started off by trying to go on the island of Anna Maria Island, hoping that there would be tourists there with good money. That didn't work out very well, so we headed into some inner city neighborhoods that didn't go very well either. And eventually I quit on Bradenton and headed to Sarasota where the night got better and I made more money. So on today's video, Uber driving in Bradenton, Florida on a Saturday night. Let's get into it. Alright everybody, on today's video we're going to be checking out the nightlife vibe on Anna Maria Island right outside of Bradenton. This was a Saturday night. Now Anna Maria Island is kind of a good option for people looking for a more secluded vacation in the state of Florida. And we did go Uber driving, and many of the people that we picked up were simply on vacation from other parts of Florida. So the absolute worst part of Anna Maria Island is that there's only one way in and one way out. And then if you go down to Bradenton Beach, there's another bridge. Anna Maria Island is at the southern tip of Tampa Bay. Last year we had 2 hurricanes come through here. In fact, you can still see the sand piles when you enter the island in a few places. Everything here was completely underwater twice, so you can still see that the sand is still everywhere. But nighttime vibes have started to come back. A few restaurants, not all of them, are open. But there's enough going on the island where people are starting to come back again. And spring break is right around the corner. If the red tide goes away, which it looks like it's starting to, and if the water clarity improves, we could actually have a pretty good spring break on Anna Maria Island. Now our first passenger was going to Bradenton Beach. That's on the southern tip of Anna Maria Island. You can see how there's still a dumpster here. They're still cleaning up a lot of stuff from the hurricanes. This was an $8 ride with a $1 tip. It took me about 11 minutes to get him to his destination from West or South Bradenton to Bradenton Beach. The restaurant had a lot of people outside. It was a Saturday night. They were playing some live music. You can see across the street there's a building that has a fence around it, and that's facing the water. So not everything on the island is back and open, but there's enough stuff open where if you were to go to the island, you'd be able to find restaurants and things to do. At least Bridge Street in Bradenton Beach seems to be in pretty good shape. There's restaurants open, there's music playing, and there's people out and about on a Saturday night. Now, overall, Uber driving was really weak in the Bradenton area. Later on in the evening, I hopped into Sarasota, and there I made very good money. But for the most part, Uber driving here was extraordinarily weak, and there were many periods throughout the drive where I didn't have a passenger. So even though it's a Saturday, Anna Maria Island, it's kind of isolated and it doesn't have as much traffic as, let's say, Siesta Key. For example, Siesta Key, being about the same size roughly, has a lot more activity from passengers. Anna Maria Island, once you start heading north, it's really hard to get passengers. They're usually really nice passengers because they're people who are on vacation. Now, like I said earlier, Anna Maria Island is kind of a quieter destination. A lot of people from the other coast of Florida come here simply to look for a quieter and just more isolated place to vacation that isn't as hectic. And even though there is still hurricane damage visible, things are kind of back to normal. A lot of vacation rentals are open again, and there's starting to be people on the island. Not like previous years, but it's starting to get back up there. So the next person that we picked up was only a 3-minute ride, less than a mile, and they gave me a $1 tip, bringing the ride total to $5. I got another ride on the island for $4 with a $1 tip, bringing the total to almost $5. And it was less than a mile. So on the island, in theory, if you can get 4 passengers in an hour, you can make roughly $20 to $26 an hour simply picking up 4 people and taking them very short distances. And there's places where you can park and hang out and vibe, even with beach views. So it's a nice place to kind of hang out and Uber drive. But I really don't like to sit idle. To me, sitting idle is just a waste of breath. Now, the speed limit on the islands are about 25 miles an hour, and there are cops everywhere. Some places it goes up to 30. You need to be very keenly aware of the speed limits because there are cops everywhere on these islands, very well patrolled. And if you go above the speed limit, you will be detained and you will obtain a ticket. Now, some individuals on a Saturday night are drinking and driving, and they drive possibly even slower than they have to. The individual in front of us was driving well below the speed limit, causing us both to get this red light. And keep in mind that I'm Uber driving, and these lights on the island can take forever. So I got a little aggravated right here at this spot because this person was driving significantly slower than the speed limit. Notice how slow they got off the line as well. Alright, so we're here to pick up a passenger. Now this little area has a few restaurants. I believe this is technically Holmes Beach. So one person got in the car, and then I had to drive a little bit further up to pick up the rest of the party. And these girls were just kind of minding their own business. They were definitely drinking a little bit, but they were not a problem. They were just kind of talking amongst each other and ignoring me, which is fine with me for a short ride. This is a really popular spot to pick up people here on the island, and there's a lot of people walking around at night. So people here, they go to restaurants. A lot of people don't even get a car rental when they come to Anna Maria Island. You get your vacation rental. There's the free trolley during the daytime. And then, it's a nice area, safe to walk. So you can see that people walk around at night. So you can get a vacation rental. You don't need a car. You can Uber to your hotel or Airbnb, whatever you're renting. Everything you need is here. Little restaurants, places to eat. I think there's even a Publix somewhere on the island. Now, the speed limit on the island is 25 miles an hour, but late at night, there's a lot of people drinking and driving. And I can tell you that we were possibly going as low as 14 miles an hour in a 25. So that's considerably too slow. And it's because during the weekend you have a lot of people that are drinking and driving, so it kind of gets irritating when you have to go pick up a passenger and they're texting you saying, hey, why are you driving so slow? It's not that you're driving slow, it's that on the island you have individuals like these people here that are just going extraordinarily slow, most likely because they're drinking and driving on the island. Okay, so we dropped the passengers off here at what looks like a little hotel or a little motel looking thingy. It's not fancy, but this is where they're getting dropped off. During the daytime, it's hard to get Uber passengers because you have the free trolleys. There's one right there, and I guess that might be a city bus. But regardless, there's a lot of free transportation you could use, which means that getting Uber passengers here can be extraordinarily difficult throughout the daytime. At nighttime and later at night when there's no buses running or trolleys, then you can do very well as far as how much you make per ride and how many people tip by percentage. But the rides are very infrequent. All right, so now we're approaching what I would call like the miniature downtown where there's more commercial stuff on Anna Maria Island. There's a few restaurants like the Ugly Grouper. I'm not sure if they're open again. There's just little places you can get ice cream and restaurants and places where you can rent bicycles and rent electric scooters and golf carts and different things. This is kind of like the miniature downtown of Anna Maria Island. It isn't much. It's just a really small area of restaurants. Luckily, it's all back to normal because of the hurricanes we had that were very severe. I would say that the recovery was certainly speedy. So they had a very fast recovery. Now, there's still sand just about everywhere. You can see the sand everywhere, but the vibes are kind of back. People are enjoying themselves. On this particular evening, the temperature was nice and cool, so perfect for a nice little walk to a restaurant. The red tide seemed to be gone, so there wasn't a bad smell. I kind of drove around the island aimlessly for a little bit, trying to get Uber passengers. It just seemed really slow of a night, and it's okay. It's a more relaxed place, but later on in the night, like I said, I head to Sarasota, which is definitely popping off. There's this little pizza place right here. I think they were still open. You can see somebody inside working, but there was, I think, just one car outside. So it's definitely a lot slower pace than other places in Florida. It's a very quiet island. Now, the islands are very dark because of sea turtle nesting. And I think that also adds to how relaxing the vibe is because you don't have these giant lights everywhere. The lights are kind of dim, and I think that just kind of adds to the ambience of quietness and relaxation that you have on the island. A lot of people are using golf carts and bicycles or walking, so it's definitely very mellow on the island. And on a cool night that's perfect for walking, it just makes for a very relaxing place to be during the winter. Now, this time of year, it's older people getting together, groups of families. When spring break comes around, this is a very hit place for spring breakers. So a lot of them kind of affluent because the vacation rentals here are definitely not affordable. So right now, you just have a lot of like people on vacation, little groups here and there. It's very mellow, tranquil, you could say. Now it's gonna get more active when spring break comes around. There's gonna be more young people, more people, And even tonight, I noticed that people were burning the Jamaica, and that's kind of a little trashy, especially on a cool, slow night like this. So, it's kind of it isn't perfectly pristine. So, there's a serenity about this place, but there's also a little bit of a trashiness. Now, it isn't completely trashy. I would say this is kind of an elegant place. But, you do have these vacation rentals come in, and you don't really get to control that aspect of the island. A lot of the long-time residents don't really like all these vacation rentals. It brings in kind of a different crowd that isn't what the locals would want. Okay, we find ourselves back over here again to pick up a passenger and a wife. I think there was like a couple, I believe. And these two were kind of a little annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes when people drink, they become a little uneasy. You get a little hesitant. And they weren't like bad, they weren't like disrespectful or nasty drunk. But then there's like a happy drunk, then there's like a tense drunk, and then there's an angry drunk. They weren't quite angry, but they were just a little tense. Now, these two were from the other coast, the busier coast of Florida, the Southeast Florida coast. And they had come over here looking for kind of a quieter escape, and I'm pretty sure they found it. You guys know that's Miami, Fort Lauderdale. It's just kind of a busier area. So a lot of people come over here kind of looking for some serenity, getting away from the busier crowds. So they were just looking for a quiet getaway on a tranquil island, and I think they found just that. They were going to a grocery store on the island from their fancy restaurant. We dropped them off right here, and we received a $1 tip. Now, at this point, the night had been really slow, so I was thinking, let me get off the island. And pretty much, I got a ride off the island as soon as I dropped them off. But the person canceled the ride for some random reason. This happens quite often on Anna Maria Island, and I really do not understand why. But you'll get somebody who will order an Uber. You'll make some quick maneuvers to try to get out to them. And then, as you're trying to get to them, they cancel the ride. Here I am pulling a U-turn, making a maneuver to head their way. But immediately after ordering the ride, they canceled it, which left me looking like an idiot since I pulled a U-turn out of nowhere to get to them. And then as they canceled, I had to pull another U-turn to get back south. So that was a little aggravating, and when somebody cancels that briefly, you don't get paid for it. So this ride gave me $0.00. Here I am finding out that I lost the ride just after getting it. Kind of aggravating. Now, Sarasota has a few islands as well. Bradenton has islands. Sarasota has islands. In Sarasota, the islands, the tips are $3 to $4. Here in Bradenton, they're $1. In Sarasota, people don't cancel. In Bradenton, people always cancel. So even on the island, Uber driving is far superior in Sarasota. You get more tips, you get better customers, and you don't get as many oddball passengers. I think I got a couple of weirdos in Bradenton to start the night. There's just individuals who just have a really creepy vibe. I don't know how to explain it. There's just individuals who, like, their presence is awkward. You have people that flow naturally, and then you have people that when they get in the back seat, it's kind of like a bad cloud fills the car. And even if you have a conversation with them, there's just a weird, tense sensation. So either way, I decided that I've had enough of Bradenton and its beaches, and I wanted to go into Sarasota because I do need to make money. And while it was nice to see Anna Maria Island, I definitely didn't come here to play around. I needed to make some money, and I was just to the point where I had it with Uber driving on Anna Maria Island. At this point, I had been Uber driving in Manatee County, the Bradenton side, for like 2 hours, and I had only made like $20. So the mathematical equation came out to like $13 an hour or something similar to that. Definitely not worth it. And that's not even including my gas. So it started to get a little aggravating how slow things were in Bradenton beach, Bradenton Beaches, Anna Maria Island, and I was already thinking I gotta get into Sarasota. But you're Uber driving. Ideally, you stick around and hope you can get a ride. Now, this is Bradenton Beach. Things here seem to be kind of back to normal. It's very well lit here. I don't know how they do that because usually on the islands you can't. So like I said earlier in the video, because of sea turtle nesting, you're not really allowed to have that much lighting anywhere on the island. So I don't know how they get away with it on this particular street, but it's kind of technically not supposed to happen because of sea turtle nesting. Maybe because it's one single street that's north to south. I don't really get how it works. I always found it interesting how this is like a very well lit area when in theory it's not supposed to be this well lit because of the sea turtle thing. But there's so much corruption going on in these islands. On the left you can see a tiki bar that was built, and I think they're fighting over that because they built it outside of the size that they submitted the permits for. On the left is a mobile home park that I did a whole video series on. So this area is just surrounded with legal battles and contingencies and rivalries and all types of wicked and greedy things happening in this little area. It's kind of a mess, to be honest with you. It's a beautiful island. It's a great place overall, and the people that come here are great. But internally, you know, this real estate's worth a lot of money. And I think the people here, they're not really good at sharing things. They're kind of greedy. There's just a lot of internal battles. You can see this place here, usually on a Saturday or a Friday, would be packed with people. I'm not sure why it's closed and empty. Usually this place is packed at night. I'm not sure what the deal is. But anyways, this area of Bradenton Beach has had its fair share of controversy. Every time I go on Facebook, anything on the island, there's some type of legal battle between property owners and businesses and the county and the city, and somebody's always pointing a finger at somebody. You know, you would think that living on this beautiful island, there wouldn't be so much contingencies, but there's just a lot of really greedy people that want to just buy the whole place themselves and are willing to do whatever it takes to make other people's lives more difficult so that they can take what they want, which is basically everything. So, you know, this is kind of a sad thing where, like, it's a beautiful place, beautiful beaches, beautiful tourist, beautiful setting, but, you know, underneath it all, there's just a whole nother thing going on here. And sometimes nasty people can turn a beautiful place unattractive. And it's not going to stop me from going to the beaches. And honestly, these types of little beachy bars and stuff like that are mostly touristy crap. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm more of a genuine vibe type of person. To me, this is all artificial. But I drive through here on a busy night and see people out and about walking, enjoying themselves. And I'm known to go to the beach a lot. So I enjoy the beaches and the vibe. But, you know, I'm personally not the type of person to walk into a beachside restaurant and have some touristy food because it's not the price tag. It's just not in my nature. It's not the type of things that I like to do. Heading further south, you can see how dark it is. Again, you know, areas that along the coast have the whole sea turtle thing going on. The lights can't be too bright. But there's good news. You'll see that they finally opened on Bradenton Beach some of the parking spots that were destroyed by the hurricane. This is absolutely great news for us. You can see that there are vehicles parked here. And that is something that if you live in Bradenton, Florida, you have been anticipating greatly. I'm very excited that there is now parking available here because these are some of my favorite beaches that we haven't been able to go to because there's been nowhere to park. I think it's a little rustic how they just patted down the sand there and there's no real covering, I guess. But I guess, again, it has to be natural or whatever, so that's what's going on. And there looks like they're working to open up even more up ahead. So this is freaking great news that I have been anticipating. I'm going to pull in real quick just to use their porta potty right here. Uber driving, there's not too many places to go. But you can see here how they've opened up even more parking available. And I couldn't be more excited. If you live in Bradenton, Florida, this is good news. All right, you can see that there's people on the pier fishing. They got their flashlights out there. And I'm sure that they're happy that things are kind of starting to go back to normal. You can see how they placed some big limestone rocks there. I think they need to spend some money on coconut trees. This area needs hundreds of coconut trees. This will help in the future when there's a hurricane to prevent so much beach erosion. I think one of the biggest problems that this area has is that they don't have enough vegetation. Now, I don't know who's in charge of building and roads out here, but a while back I made a suggestion and it seems like somebody heard it and implemented it, because exactly what I said needed to happen, they did it. So I hope if they're still listening, get some coconut trees and put some coconut trees kind of like they have in Fort Lauderdale, so that if you ever have a hurricane again, everything doesn't get washed away. I hope they're learning their lessons about, stuff like that, because, if you don't have enough vegetation along the coast, there's no shade, there's no vibes, and of course, everything gets washed away. Coconut trees would be a great addition to this little area, and eventually it will help protect the coastline, so when there's another hurricane, the whole place doesn't get washed away. You can still see there's sand everywhere. Now, like I said, I'm Uber driving and I'm eager to get off the island. I finally got a ride off the island. So we're gonna go pick up our passengers here on Bradenton Beach. Now, these passengers were 3 or 4 very young females. I'm gonna guess they were in their early 20s. They had their cowboy hats, their cowboy boots, and they loved their Uber driver. They gave me an $8 tip, and they told me and praised me greatly about how great of an Uber driver I was compared to the other previous Uber drivers they had been dealing with lately. I'm not going to show you where I picked them up, but I picked them up somewhere around here. And we are finally heading off the island, which is what I wanted to do because I did want to make money. Now that we're heading off the island, I'm playing music that they like. Seems like every song that I played, they liked it. They were just really in a good mood. And I even had to just kind of pause the brakes on one of the females because it seemed like they were kind of a little too into their Uber driver. But it was respectful. And, I kind of made it clear to them that I'm off the market and just tip me nicely is what I told them, That's the best way you can show your appreciation is tipping nicely. So, where are they going? They are going to downtown Bradenton. Now, there really isn't much in downtown Bradenton. Downtown Bradenton practically sucks. We're on the bridge now, and we're heading into Bradenton. Bradenton, downtown sucks. Now, Sarasota, on the other hand, their downtown is closer to the beaches, and it's very vibrant. So, if you stay on Anna Maria Island, you're kind of missing out on good nightlife because downtown Bradenton really freaking sucks. And you can see that all along here, there's still a lot of construction going on from the hurricane. Kind of remember while we're driving here on Cortez, I kind of did have to turn the music off for a minute. Hey, tone it down a little bit, ladies. I got a wife at home. She's beautiful. And, we're here just to get you from point A to point B. Because these females were trying to push the one in the front seat onto me. And I was like, yo, it's not happening. This flower is taken. Now, it's a good thing that they were comfortable with their Uber driver because the part of town that we had to drive through to get to where they were going is a little rough. It's just like the homeless corridor of Bradenton. So they went from very cheerful to just eyes wide open looking around where the crap are we? So, of course, they're going from an island resort type of place to a bar outside of downtown Bradenton. So when we drove through here and they start seeing the homeless people and they start seeing the girls on the corner, their eyes were just kind of wide open. They're like, where the crap are we? And I was like, so you guys from around here? And if they were like, yeah, we are, which was a lie. I was like, you should go to downtown Sarasota. It's a little bit nicer. Because they were clearly just, they were just really good, comfortable with me. And then we pull into, this street, which takes them to where they were going. They're like, oh, where the crap are we going? And there was really no nice way of taking them through Bradenton. But it's interesting to see, tourists, when you take them through not so touristy areas, what their reactions are like. And this area is definitely not the most touristy part of town. And I could tell that they were just a little shell-shocked when they start driving through this part of Bradenton, seeing that every person walking around is homeless and stuff. It was kind of a mood changer for them. It was just like, wow, where the crap are we? But anyways, I just nicely recommended that maybe they should try downtown Sarasota. It's a little bit more vibrant. But ideally, if you're coming to Sarasota or Bradenton, Anna Maria Island is beautiful. It is gorgeous, but Bradenton ain't crap, to be honest. And I have a Bradenton address, and I have to admit, Bradenton really isn't crap. And even for Uber driving, it's far inferior than Sarasota. And I have to tell you, even the passengers in Sarasota are just more civilized and less aggressive. Earlier in the day when I started taking you guys, on this trip, we had started off earlier by getting stuff to eat in Bradenton at this little place called Sam's that I like. It's kind of in the hood. And there was this guy there, two guys that were trying to convince the people at the front desk that they had paid for food, and they were demanding food or a money refund. And this became like a whole scene. Eventually, the people started demanding to talk to a manager. The manager told them, "Look, man, you ain't got no receipt. You ain't ordered no food. You need to leave." They threatened the employees that they were gonna get their lawyers involved. So it just got really nasty. And then they walked outside, got in their vehicle, and started doing like burnouts in the parking lot, which was kind of scary because I'm wondering if they're gonna come back and slam their car into the building and take me with it. It was kind of a very scary scenario. So there's some real petty people in Bradenton. And as you're Uber driving in Bradenton, it's kind of scary, to be honest, because there's always a potential to run into somebody who will be willing to do anything for $1. I recently did some Uber Eats deliveries here in Bradenton during a live stream, and I had somebody who we brought food to them, and then they said that I got into a fight with them in order to try to get their money refunded. So Uber driving in Bradenton can be really scary at night. You just run into a lot of scary people, a lot of people doing illicit activity, a lot of people that are violent, a lot of people that are just trying to scam their way out of having to pay the ride. And, if you do get a passenger from the beach heading to downtown, when they see the hordes of homeless people, like here you can see people sleeping on a bench and stuff like that, they're usually scared out of their freaking minds because they didn't realize that their town where they're vacationing in has so much crappery. But Bradenton really isn't a tourist destination. It may have beautiful beaches, but the city of Bradenton is a complete kind of crime crap hole, and there's no nice way of saying that. The downtown has a long way to go before it can be decent. There is some development, and there is some people who come here just to get out of the cold weather, but 90% of the people you see walking around here at night are homeless, and it's not exactly a very touristy city. Sarasota, on the other hand, is a completely different vibe. Like, these cities are right next to each other, but they're very different. Sarasota is more classy and refined. I find that in Sarasota, maybe 1 in 30 passengers is a problem, where in Bradenton, maybe 1 in 3 passengers can be problematic, especially at night. If you're catching a ride between Bradenton and Palmetto, you're almost guaranteed that there's going to be something interesting going on. So I got a passenger. I'm trying to get out of Bradenton. I'm trying to get back into Sarasota. Now try to take a look at when I make this left turn, how many homeless people are hanging out here in front of this business. There's probably 5 or 6 homeless people there, and a few other right here behind the garbage can. And here's the Bradenton Police Department coming up around the building. Now, when I passed the cop, he kind of stopped his vehicle suddenly, and I guess he was interested in why I pulled into the street. So it's a type of place where you don't want to pick somebody up at night because there's a lot of criminal activity, lots of homeless. You could end up somebody trying to use the Uber driver as point A to point B for some type of activity. So this person getting picked up here in this neighborhood is a little sketchy. And on top of that, I had to wait for quite a considerable amount of time because when I got to the house, the person wasn't ready. So this definitely isn't the place you want to be picking up somebody at 1 in the morning and putting them in your car. You guys remember that I recently had a lady that lives on 9th Street West, and she accidentally put in 9th Street East at night. She lives here in Bradenton, and the lady almost had a heart attack when she saw me driving into this neighborhood. She thought I was going to hurt her. "Why are you taking me into this neighborhood? Please don't hurt me." And I said, "Ma'am, if you're not safe, you can get out." She's like, "Please don't leave me here. Why are you bringing me here?" I said, "Ma'am, let's go somewhere safe and we'll figure this out." She's like, "No, you're going to hurt me." Anyways, this lady literally had a panic attack because she put in her address wrong on the app. So I didn't take her to West Bradenton. where she lives on the water. I took her to East Bradenton, which is somewhere up in here. And she had been coming back from the airport really late at night. She normally isn't out late at night, so she just happened to get a late flight into town, and she put in the wrong address. And this woman had like a complete panic attack when I brought her to this neighborhood. I finally drove her to a well-lit gas station, parked somewhere. I said, okay, ma'am, now that we're here, let's figure this out. And I helped her fix the app to put in the right address. It was really her fault because she had put in the wrong address, but she thought I was bringing her to this neighborhood to hurt her. So even the people that live here in Bradenton are kind of afraid of some of these neighborhoods. Now, I'm not afraid of bad neighborhoods, and I purposely go Uber driving in the worst areas very late at night because I like to keep myself sharp and I like to keep myself level. And with the work that I do on YouTube, I have to always kind of be ready to go. And this just keeps me sharp. It keeps me in my senses. But this person is making me wait outside of a pretty sketchy area where somebody could just have a problem with me being there. Like there's a house across the street. They're peeking through the blinds. So I'm like, if this person doesn't show up, I'm literally just going to have to leave because I don't wait in bad neighborhoods. That's the one thing I've learned. If you're in a bad neighborhood and you order Uber, you need to be ready for your Uber driver. Your Uber driver is not going to wait outside of a sketchy area for too long because it's not safe and because it gives you the opportunity to set them up or distract them or whatever. So this is something that I've learned on Uber. If somebody orders an Uber in a bad area, you know where you live, you know where you're at, so don't act stupid. If you're in a bad area, don't make your Uber driver wait outside. He's probably going to leave with reason. And in some of these neighborhoods, they even have punteros, guys that are on point. Like there's a few neighborhoods in this metro area, Sarasota and Bradenton to be exact. There's a few places that if you go into these neighborhoods, there's somebody who's a lookout. And if you're not from there and you hang out for too long, they're going to have to come check you out. Okay, so we drop off our passenger at a gas station. I think he was going to work or getting medicine. He was really, really sick. So I dropped him off. He didn't tip me, I'm pretty sure. Let's take a look here. Yeah, he didn't tip. And most people in sketchy neighborhoods don't tip. This is kind of why working in these areas really, really sucks. It really sucks because they don't tip ever. To the point where there'll be a price surcharge in their neighborhood because Uber drivers avoid the neighborhood, and the price surcharge is usually typically the difference because you're going to pay the same either way whether you tip or not. So if your neighborhood doesn't tip, you'll get a surcharge in your neighborhood that'll balance out the rate to be about the same. So don't think that by not tipping you're paying less, because after all, if you live in Palmetto or Ellington or Parrish, there are always price increases and surcharges in those areas, because since the people there don't tip, Uber automatically raises the overall price so that drivers will go out there and get you. Otherwise, nobody will pick you up. That's why a lot of Uber drivers work specifically just the bad areas, because they don't have to worry about getting tipped, because at the end of the day, you're going to make the same either way. So if you don't tip in your area as a whole, nobody tips, then there's just a price surcharge as Uber drivers avoid that area. And that surcharge brings you to about roughly what the tipping would be. And in some cases, the surcharge will be even higher than that. There's bad neighborhoods that will get an $8 or $9 surcharge at night. You're not going to get an $8 or $9 tip. So it's not like people think that because they don't tip their Uber driver that they're doing something incredible. But in reality, they're just making it takes longer to get an Uber driver. Less Uber drivers want to work that area. And Uber will eventually give you a surcharge because they have to get you picked up somehow. And the only way they can do that is by jacking up the price. There's a few rough spots in Sarasota you have to look out for, but there's nothing in Sarasota as bad as Bradenton. Some of these people in Bradenton just absolutely suck. And it's horrible because you do get some great passengers in Bradenton, and it really sucks for those people that they have to deal with the fact that drivers don't even want to work these areas. So they have to pay surcharges forced. They have to wait 30 minutes for an Uber driver. You know, it's harder for those good, hardworking people to get an Uber rider because there's so many problematic people. So this is East Bradenton right now. This is one of those areas that I personally just avoid completely. People don't ever tip. I mean, it's just problematic all the way around. And, you know, I do work all areas. A lot of Uber drivers only stick to their high dollar areas. Me, like I said, I like to go into these areas once in a while. So the last person that I'm picking up is finally going to Sarasota. Now, in Bradenton, Didn't make a lot of money. Didn't get a lot of tips. Other than those girls that gave me the $8 tip because they liked the music, there really were no incredible tips at all. So I can say that for a Saturday night, Uber driving in Bradenton was a horrendously bad idea. Not only are you putting yourself in neighborhoods where people can be dangerous, they never tip. A lot of times they're not in a good mood. I didn't really get any horrible passengers on this night, but I didn't either get that many great experiences either. So it's kind of just uneventful, which is boring. And if I'm Uber driving on a Saturday night, come on, I want to have some fun, you know? Now, as soon as I got the crap out of Bradenton, things instantly got better. So I picked up a girl that was working, and she worked in Bradenton and lived in Sarasota. Now, she initially moved to Bradenton and she didn't like it, so she immediately moved to Sarasota. Very smart on her part. I didn't get a tip from her, but she was working a late night shift, so it's understandable. But then I got my first ride. I picked somebody up in a very fancy restaurant in Lakewood Ranch, and I took them to their home in almost to Mayaka City. They gave me a $10 tip. Yeah, $10. It was a redneck, and like I always tell you guys, rednecks are the best tippers. Then I picked up some dudes in Lakewood Ranch near Mayaka City exit that were going to downtown Sarasota to party. Now, these broke dudes didn't give me a tip, even though they made me stop at a gas station. So at this point, they did a scam to avoid having to pay the wait time. I'm not going to explain to you guys how that scam works because I don't want to teach you how to do bad things. Before I finish the story, look when we cross this bridge. On the right side, right, you'll see that it looks like there's somebody sleeping on the side of the bridge right there. Maybe a homeless person. I don't know what that was. If I'm not mistaken, that's a homeless person sleeping on the bridge. But this area of Bradenton along Highway 64 heading to 75, it may look suburban, but it's still the hood. And there's a lot of homelessness, and there's like places called Needle Creeks where the homeless gather in the woods and just make massive piles of needles. So now we're going to get on Interstate 75 and head south towards Sarasota. But anyways, these dudes, first they did a scam to not have to pay the wait time. Again, I'm not going to teach you how to do that, but they did that. And then they made me stop at a gas station, and they have to pay for that. They didn't put it into the app. So these dudes thought they were slick. They finessed me twice. They didn't pay for the wait time with a scam that they ran. And then they made me make a stop. And then they didn't even tip me even after I played the music that they would have liked. So these are dudes that before they got out of the car were even starting to prepare their paraphernalia of some sort. So it seems like that was kind of frustrating. I accommodated all their whatever they needed, and they didn't even tip. So even in Lakewood Ranch, you can get somebody who, for some reason or another, just doesn't fit the good Lakewood Ranch profile. I ran off into Sarasota, and I got a $3 tip. I got a $0 tip. The next person gave me a $0 tip, $1 tip, $3 tip, no tip, $5 tip. So I kind of did better in Sarasota with the tips. So overall, the whole entire night, I drove about 6 hours and made $164. But I can tell you that overwhelmingly, the time that I Uber drove in Bradenton was a waste of time, as usual. At least I didn't have any bad passengers, like homeless people that smell bad. I didn't have any passengers that were dangerous or engaging in illicit activities. There's a reason why I avoid Uber driving in Bradenton. The people simply do not tip. And even on a Saturday night, you're making less than $20 an hour because people don't tip. There aren't enough rides, and the rides that you do get are neighborhoods you're trying to avoid to begin with. So trying to Uber drive in the better, safer parts of Bradenton, like Anna Maria Island, really seemed like a complete waste of time. Next time, I'm definitely going to head into Sarasota as usual. Uber driving in Bradenton at night really sucks. And at least I didn't have any criminal activity or dangerous people, which is what you would most normally get in Bradenton. But again, this is reality of Uber driving in Bradenton at night. It really freaking sucks. And it was kind of slow. I mean, we're at the heart of season. It's the time of year when the people are down here. And on top of that, it's a Saturday night. And you're making less than $20 an hour on Uber. Luckily, I did bounce back by going into Sarasota and making up the difference. Overall, I would have to say that the worst thing during this entire day of Uber driving in both cities was the people I picked up on Lakewood Ranch that did a scam so they didn't have to pay the wait time. And then they also made me go to a gas station, and again, they didn't put it in the app, and then they didn't tip on top of all that. So you go out of your way to accommodate all their inconveniences, and then they don't tip. And there were two big dudes that, late at night isn't exactly ideal. I'm at the point where if somebody is young and there's more than one of them and they're bigger than me late at night, I consider not even worth the hassle. The only downside of Uber driving in Sarasota late at night is a lot of drunk drivers, and you have to be extraordinarily alert and aware of your surroundings in Sarasota at night when Uber driving, because there is an abundance of DUIs. On this particular night, I had somebody who, for some reason or another, left the hatch of their car open. They dropped stuff on the road. Just, you have to be really careful. On a completely unrelated note, today I was on the same off-ramp and in the daytime, and there was a family of wild hogs eating right here on the side of the road. So right in there on the side of the road, there's a family of wild hogs that lives right in there. Can't really do much about them because they're kind of near the highway. But if they're in a more rural area, it wouldn't be some bad hunting. But right in here on that off-ramp, you'll see, even in the daytime, family of hog that lives there eating grass on the side of the road. That's what it's like to Uber drive in Bradenton at night. It wasn't as bad as other experiences I've had here in Bradenton, but it certainly wasn't a profitable endeavor.